What's up, YouTube? Lord of Houston coming at you with a video. 713 the Bayou City, or should I say the Space City, win the building. Well, I didn't watch the first three quarters, though I did catch the fourth quarter of the game. But I gotta say, it was no secret that the Texans ended up losing by a score of 17-7 on a game-ending pick thrown by C.J. Stroud, though the defender got a hand on it. I mean, yeah, it was a pretty ugly game. A defensive game. Both teams had their share of opportunities, including the Jags to break the game open. The Texans had an opportunity to take the lead late in the game, but thanks to a late Nico Collins fumble that gave the Jags an opportunity to take the lead, in which they did on a Travis Etienne touchdown, which gave Stroud enough time to march down the field to try to either tie the game or win the game, thanks to a key 2-point conversion. But that turned out not to be the case. Shout out to Jalen. Nico did get his first 100-yard receiving yards for the year in a TD. Though he would have had a lot more. Hell, he would have, I don't know, man. Because I feel like this was a game that the Texans needed to win, desperately win. But as it turns out, that Jacksonville ended up winning it more, as they finally snap a 7-8 game loser streak in Duval versus the Houston Texans. They first win versus Houston in Jacksonville since 2017 when they made it to that AFC Championship game. I mean, yeah, being on 3 doesn't feel so good, man, despite having a talented roster. But I would say something's got to give, but I don't know, man. It's like but this wouldn't be the first time that Houston started off 0-3, though. Back in 2018, when they started off 0-3, they ended up winning 9 straight, to win the division, but only to go 1 and done in the playoffs. But Houston Texans got the Tennessee Titans next week, who's also going to be 0-3, just like the Texans as well. But god damn, Houston better figure out how to turn things around and quickly. And that's starting with that. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, the offense, the O-line, they did, I still plan on watching the game, rewatching the game while at work, but I feel like the offensive line held up pretty solidly today. But I feel like this team needs to turn it around and quick, which starts next week versus the Tennessee Titans. Because, man, it's like I mentioned before, it's not getting any easier for the Houston Texans. And it all starts with the offense finding that spark that could really propel this offense. And I would say that I know it's the offense is still trying to gel, under Nick Haley calling the plays. But at this point, as time is going more and more forward, I'm starting to think that they missed out on a veteran play caller in, Chip Kelly, for example. Or I'm realizing that the Texans missed out on a key offensive play caller in Cliff Kingsbury, which would have led to the Texans offense kicking ass, back in 23. Man, I know it's 2025 now, but damn. But they had to settle for Bobby Slowick, who is no longer the OC of the Texans. But yeah, so Texans fall to 0-3. Shout out to Jagging off. I know you feeling good right now. Shout out to Jaguar Man and UCF Jaguar. But as for the Houston Texans, It's time to turn the page to the Tennessee Titans. So there you have it. LTH checking on up out of here. Go Texans.